Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Judge Janine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Well, apparently, Greg, it was a showdown for the ages. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris squaring off for their first debate. The night starting out with a handshake and quickly turned into haymakers.
She doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
During the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. What you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Quiet, please. She's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
All right, but the big controversy of the night wasn't the candidates. ABC moderators David Muir and Lindsay Davis getting called out after aggressively fact-checking Trump 5 times, but 0 times for Harris.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But
And here are the questionable Harris statements that they let go.
A detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing. What did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Meanwhile, the Harris campaign wants a second debate. Donald Trump says he's mulling it over.
Well, you know, when you don't win, it's like a fighter. When a fighter has a bad fight, gets knocked out, or loses the fight, the first thing he says is, we want a rematch. So we won the debate according to every poll, every single poll. I think that, are we going to do a rematch? I just don't know. But we'll think about it.
Greg, there's been big electoral shifts. I mean, like seismic things happening in this campaign. Joe Biden's debate, Trump's the assassination attempt on his life, Joe Biden dropping out, and the race basically remains tied, and it probably will be after this debate as well. But what did you think about last night?
Well, I don't know who won, but I know who lost. It was the American people. You know, you could say if you complain about the refs, you're losing. Well, if the refs are corrupt, you got to complain because everybody lost. I actually got dumber watching it. I felt like my brain was being waterboarded by the sheer nonsense of these idiot moderators. But we were so sidetracked by the mechanics of the debate, the muted mics, that we forgot about them. I honestly don't know how anyone can decide who won the debate. That's like trying to guess the price of a painting that you suspect is a forgery. You can't objectively decide a winner in a sham competition. This is truly the first DEI debate, where one candidate was subjected to a high standard and the other was held to no standards at all. They removed the essence of fairness to achieve an outcome that could not be scored. You cannot score that. That is why you can't say who won or who lost. A liberal should be ashamed that your candidate needed the odds to be stalked so heavily in their favor. You know, for many Americans, Harris entered as a mystery and exited as a mystery, and that was the goal, to keep her under wraps. So anyone who attributes that to Kamala's skill is an idiot. Congratulating Kamala for the debate is stolen valor. You should be congratulating David Muir and Lindsay Davis, who did the heavy lifting. And so calling that a debate is disinformation. That's like me going into a bar with Tyrus and inciting a brawl and then later taking credit for all the broken jaws. You know, it's just, and by the way, you're going to say, oh, how do you know that it's a sham? Kamala confidently and casually unloaded all the hoaxes. The Fine People hoax, the bloodbath, Project 2025, the abortion ban, these things have all been debunked. Would she have done that knowing that there would be consequences? She did that knowing there would be no consequences, no follow-ups at all. This was actually a betrayal of knowledge, knowledge being the act of solving a problem. And we had agreed to what the problem was. Who is Kamala? The debate deliberately chose the opposite path. Instead of the opportunity to gain knowledge, they chose to cover it up and betray the public. You know, I went by this stupid assumption that maybe they would ask Kamala some real questions and follow-ups. I was tricked. I'm like the person who foolishly assumes a partner who cheated on him would not cheat again. But the media always cheats again. And we have to remind ourselves, they have their interests before your interests.
I was talking to a friend today who reminded me of the phrase of Fred Astaire, or Ginger Rogers had to do everything backwards and in heels. That's Republicans.
Yeah, exactly.
And you always, but
I know it?
But and you know, when you wear those heels, it is really,
and backwards.
really amazing.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I'm telling you. All right, Harold Ford Jr., do you disagree?
Yeah, I have a slightly different opinion on this. I think a couple of things. It's good to be back around the table with everybody, first off. What I saw last night was a candidate with two candidates who each had to do, President Trump, I think, had to do one big thing. He had to stay disciplined on the issues. And I think he had a number of things to talk about, from border security to tariffs. I thought one of his more effective moments, because it was an uneven performance. I think it was, frankly, an uneven performance in skewing towards not a good performance on his part. Vice President Harris talked about tariffs. And then he said to her, "You kept my tariffs." And he didn't come back to it. It amazed me that the lack of preparation on his part. I thought when Joe Biden on June 27th, his team, he was unorganized and unprepared. Donald Trump struck me that way, too. I was on with Harris Faulkner yesterday on Brett's show, and she said that one of the things she was going to be looking for at the very beginning of the debate was who took the high road. I thought when she shook his hand and said her name, I thought those of us who followed this closely, it was something we watched. But I think the American people like that decorum, and it was a good thing for her to do it. 3, he just missed opportunities. It's almost like if you play the Kansas City Chiefs and you complain at the end of the game, they had Patrick Mahomes. Of course they have Patrick Mahomes. You've got to build a defense around him. And I thought that there were a lot of...
They had the refs.
But even, I tell my kids, Greg, in all seriousness, when you're complaining about the refs in a game...
you're losing.
You're not only losing,
I just said that.
You're letting your team down. And... if everybody believed, and Jesse and I talked about this last night, there's a belief, and I think there's some truth to it, that President Trump has to go up against the media in ways that certain candidates for president have never had to do. Knowing that, you prepare for that. And he seemed to be just skillfully unprepared. He took every bait. He took every pump fake. It was like a great basketball player would get in foul trouble first 8 minutes of the game because they committed stupid fouls. He did that a lot, and he makes the point that he doesn't want us, that if you want a second debate, that means you're losing. Look, this race is super tight. 24 years in a row, you've had super tight presidential races. I don't think anything moved. But the question is, how many new voters might have been invited to vote? And she achieved one goal. She conveyed seriousness and calmness. She didn't talk about any issues. She didn't talk about the switching of positions on issues. And hopefully at some point, the country deserves to hear. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that point, Greg. The country deserves to hear why she moved on border security, how she has moved on the economy, and where she differs with President Biden. Hopefully we get a second debate for those
Harold,
issues.
that was a lot of sports metaphors in one answer. So I was really impressed with the pump fake. Judge, one of the biggest issue for Americans is the economy. And in some assessments, that was the issue he did best on. And that was one of the first questions. So if people only watched those first 20 minutes, maybe they walked away with that.
Yeah, she was actually asked, if I recall correctly, the first question, we're better off now, than we were. And she started all this aspirational, inspirational ambitions and this and that. She didn't answer any questions. I came away from this saying to myself, 30% of Americans don't know what Kamala Harris stands for. And they still don't know what she stands for. But what I came away with that knowing, and I agree with Greg, the voters lost last night. The voters lost for several reasons. And this segment is about the legacy media. To me, ABC didn't care about the truth. They were pushing libelous questions. The questions were like a push poll. Like you call someone up allegedly trying to get, find out what people are thinking. But, isn't it true that the rooster killed the duck or whatever? And, the person said, yeah, of course it's true. And that they would actually go to Charlottesville and ask that question as though that hasn't already been debunked. And she never had to answer anything. And the major networks sanctioned these lies as if they were truths. And that is how the network and the legacy media put the final nail in the coffin. Donald Trump told us about fake news. Last night was the end of the legacy media. And if I were ever to do a debate again, I would not do it on the legacy media. We were fooled by CNN. CNN just kind of sat there. But you know why? You know why it was level with CNN? Because CNN was complicit with the Dems. They wanted Joe Biden out. So it was a fair debate. This was, we got to take Kamala's side. We got to make like January 6th. Every time she lied, they would not fact check her. She says 140 police officers were injured and some died on January 6th. What police officer died on January 6th? Ashley Babbitt died on January 6th. And then they go on and on and on. And third-term abortion, she wouldn't answer the question. They didn't push for an answer. And, I got to say one more thing. Who the hell do they think they are fact-checking? When David Muir says, well, I didn't get that, what was it, the impression on the whisker, won by a whisker? What was that term that he used? He said, I didn't interpret it that way. We're not asking you for your interpretation of what Donald Trump said. And finally, ABC News claimed that Trump was wrong when Trump said crime is going up. They said, no, crime is going down. They're wrong. They lied. And I'll tell you why. Because the FBI has made it clear that 30% of the police departments, including New York City and Los Angeles, did not respond to their request about crime. I have the stat right here. So they pushed lies. They defamed the president to push Kamala, who answered no question and was the queen of theatrics.
Go, Jesse, go.
Run, spot, run.
My favorite line. That was my favorite line of the night.
That was one of mine.
It was the first laugh. It might have been the only laugh.
I like the other one. Abdul. I said, Abdul, if there's a problem.
He sent the pictures of his house to him.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so Trump wasn't perfect, but Kamala didn't take advantage of it. Trump was emotional, he was undisciplined, but he still delivered powerful messages on the core issues that voters care about. Kamala Harris was very well prepared. She was very composed. But at the end of the debate, the voters had no idea what her policies are. So her whole strategy was to distract by mocking Donald Trump so she didn't have to talk about her record or her policies. She wasted a huge moment to be able to tell 67 million people what she stands for. All she did was say, don't vote for Trump instead of vote for me. The media loved it because they just like watching Trump get teased. But if you're an undecided voter, how did Kamala Harris explain what she's going to do to help you get a house or help you secure the border? She didn't do it. Trump missed a huge opportunity to define her. He said it a few times, but he could have been a lot more precise and beat that drum harder. He did tire to Biden. My favorite line was, what are you talking about? Go to D.C., wake Joe up at 4 in the afternoon, get him to close the border. Yep. That's all he needed to do. And the signature moments that you see on the internet after this, she didn't have any. She didn't have any. Trump had them all. And that's what's going to reverberate. She whiffed at the first question. And then just temperamentally, I found her evasive, found her unlikable, preachy, and instinctually, I don't know how it's going to play with men because men are predominantly the undecided voters.
What I loved about today was that they all got together at 9/11 and only in America can you have a big knockdown, drag-out fight the night before and then get together and do the remembrance and honoring of those victims today. And in America does that best.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.